So welcome back to the final instalment of Follow the Project. And I mentioned a garden's not a garden until you've got some plants in here. And even without putting them into the ground, you can see the massive difference it makes. There's plenty more to put in there at a later date, but we just want to get some form, some structure, some height, some colour, but most importantly, we want to get some free food for our feathered and winged friends. Because not only do we want the pollinators in here, we also want the birds in here as well. You can't smell it, but that aroma, that lovely sweet aroma of that white lavender is just wonderful. It's captivating on a warm day. This will fill this environment. Because we've got quite an intimate space in this garden, we're still going to get that aroma lingering in the air, and that just kind of casual brush past will animate the smell. This will bring in the bees in droves. Now, because we've got contained areas of planting, we're keeping everything small in size. Virtue of this means that we can get more in, and it also means that there's not too much of a plant to look after. I tend to find that we get a happier and healthier plant at this stage as well. So 3 litres and downwards in terms of pot size, say for a couple of bits and pieces in our larger bed at the back here. So in this bed in particular, let's do a top to bottom. We've talked about the lavender, but let's have a look at this. This is a real eye catcher, and this stopped me in my tracks, and also my clients as well. This is verbena, but it's not Verbena bonariensis. Got it right that time. But this is Verbena Bampton. Now, I haven't seen this before, and the reason why it stopped me in my tracks is, I mean, look at that stem, that purple, kind of glossy stem, the unmistakable verbena leaf shape as well. But what's at the tip of those tall stalks are these lovely kind of pastel, almost pinky purple, delicate flowers. Look how delicate those are. So it's a really good plant in terms of creating architectural flair in the garden, because this will go upwards more than widthways. And with especially this variety having such a contrast in terms of leaf colour and stem colour and those lovely little flowers on the top, we're going to get the pollinators in here. We're going to create that height and drama and accent. So how and where to plant it? Now, it likes fertile soil, so we've mixed in some compost into our free draining but still mineral rich soil. So it's got extra sustenance, so it likes a good hearty meal. It also likes full sun as well, and this really does enjoy the sun, so make sure you put it in a good sunny spot. Again, with all plants, make sure you keep them well watered throughout the summer months, because we don't want it to be too dry. So the more we water, the better it's going to look and the better it's going to grow. But if you're digging it in your garden, make sure you've got plenty of width and you destabilize the soil around the root system. So what I always do is offer the plant up onto the ground and give it an extra third width of broken up soil. And if your soil's in poor condition, just make sure you add a bit more compost to the ground and some good growing medium in there to make sure that this root system can get straight in there, latch onto the goodies and starts growing. So next in this bed is a lupin. Now, lupins come in all different colours, different sizes, but they all have that unmistakable lupin leaf. And I love the leaf as much as I love the flower on this, because this catches and holds that early morning dew. So you get these little beads of moisture that appear, especially on those early summer mornings when there's a little bit of mist or a bit of moisture in the air. And then the flower, I mean, how can you not love a lupin? Big, blousy heads of flower, a slightly kind of conical look to the flower. It's got a contrast in terms of those light shades at the top and then those lilac purples at the bottom as well. So that's going to complement the verbena. Again, it's another plant which is going to bring in the bees and keep those guys happy as well. So where to plant it? Same pretty much as the verbena, likes a bit of sun. You could put it into a bit of partial shade if you want, because it's not entirely sun dependent. But the most important thing, as with the verbena, as with anything we plant, is that we make sure we pay attention to where it's going in, and that's the ground. Same process before, make sure it's got plenty of space for that fledgling root system. And if your roots do come in quite hard and packed in, like some of these are, just trying to give them a little bit of a tickle out. See, some of these are already reaching out, and that's what's going to latch on to all the nutrients in the soil. And don't be afraid if you've got a bit of scratty foliage, especially if you're buying lupins in the middle of their growing season, because they're putting all their energy into this part, because this is where they're going to procreate, this is where they're going to recreate.
are the baby lupins. So that's where all the energy is going into. And the way the energy gets there is from the bottom of the plant, who's coming in for a free meal. Incidentally, we're going to do a whole video on pests of the garden, and that is a real nemesis. So always keeping a watchful eye out for these things. We don't want to be bringing them into the garden, we want to be keeping them out.
This is Perovskaya, in particular Perovskaya Russian sage. So you've got aromatic foliage. Do you like my Russian accent?
Very good.
At the end of the summer months, I'm talking around about August, September, this fires up almost very similar in terms of the kind of flower, lavender blue, pastel blues, and they're going to grow at the tips of these tall prongs. Now it does like to spread and it does like to get quite high as well, so you've got to keep on top of this guy, but it loves sunny spots and it also likes free draining but nutrient-rich soil as well. So remember, we're in control of the soil here, but we've got to be in control of the watering as well. So we don't want it to dry out. We want to make sure it just gets a good soaking like the rest of its friends. And we want this to grow. We want it not just to survive, we want it to thrive. And it will do in a spot like this where it's going to get that sun, get that. Oh, have a smell of this actually.
Wow, that's like almost basil.
Yeah, really fragrant. Genuinely one of my favourite plants and a really good, strong architectural plant. And if you're looking for late flowering in some spot, great go-to plant.
My name is Perovskaya. I don't drink water, I drink vodka. It doesn't drink vodka, it drinks water. I, however, quite partial to vodka. Had a couple this morning. He looks absolutely nothing there, but trust me, if we come back and have a look at him later on in the summer, ooh, showstopper.
Well, welcome to my shady little corner. Proper shady. It's about as much shade as the garden gets actually, because the house casts a shadow here pretty much all day long. So these plants are all shade loving. And in here, we've got a real mixture of different textures and different plants as well. So leading the charge across the center here is our batch of Astrantia. So you can see these have strong stems, and this one is actually Astrantia major white giant. And it's a slightly larger flower than you'd normally get from your Astrantia. You've got this kind of green tint all the way around, and that green vein running through the flower head, which is actually quite rare. And they add a little bit of drama at height here. So those green tones running all the way through to the tip of the flower. Incidentally, if you've never seen a green rose, Google it. It's amazing, it's such a beautiful looking thing. It's a shame they're not as popular as the red roses. I actually think they look much prettier. This is a bit of a get out of jail free card when it comes to low growing colour in shady locations, and also shady locations with poor soil as well. So this will do well in clay soil, in gritty, poor soil. As long as you give it something to get a bit of a start. Heuchera is a real easy plant to grow. It's not much of a flower, but especially against a fence or a brick wall or against the greens of your lawn, you're still going to notice those lovely white flowers as well. Very delicate. We're not going for it because of its flower, we're going to it because of its foliage and the fact that it's bulletproof when it comes to being planted in areas of shade or poor soil. Now this is Brunner Jack Frost. Now the reason we've chosen this is the leaf. It will cope with a bit of moisture, it will cope with a lot of shade, and it still throws out a flower. Now there's not much flowering going on at the moment, but it will be inbound soon. This is the kind of texture and contrast that you'd normally only find in houseplants, so it's great to have that low-growing leaf coverage with a bit of detail. And there's another thing which is synonymous with the shade, and that is your fern. But your ferns don't have to be old-fashioned stock ferns. There's plenty of cultivars and hybrids. Well, now this is Atherium Red Beauty. Now it's called that because in here you can see those delicate, almost a kind of a burgundy tone to the underside, especially on these juvenile leaves. So those rich red kind of burgundy fronds will eventually mature and go a classy colour of grey, silvery grey as they get older. And it's going to really animate this area, especially useful when you're looking to add a little bit of class and sophistication to your shady beds. We're in another slightly shadier part of the garden here, and we've already done a bit of planting here. In fact, actually, we managed to retain some of the euonymus which were out the front. Now, these are a really easy plant to grow. Not too bad in order to create, again, a bit of structure, a little form, and they're an evergreen as well. Again, a real bulletproof plant, do well in shade, do well in poor soil, and give you some form and structure. But I want to talk about this because this is much sexier, although it's looking a bit droopy. Now this is fresh out of our nursery, but can you see it's looking a little bit floppy, a little bit lackluster. Probably hasn't been watered for, well, it feels quite dry actually, so it does need a good watering. So a top tip if you are planting out your plants, and especially on a dry, warm, sunny day, always have buckets of water to hand, or a hose pipe or a watering can. But it's worth giving them a really good, strong soaking, allow all that moisture to get into that root system before they go into the ground. So what is a digitalis? Well, the common name is a foxglove. And Victorians used to make poison out of foxgloves. But that's a story for another day. We'll do a video on poisonous plants. There is a way to make these more toxic, but they look amazing. And the one thing about these is that they throw out so many flowers. I mean, look at that. This one in particular has this wonderful kind of creamy white tones. You can see they start coming to life at the bottom. They create almost like this tubular flower as well. So the bee will actually go disappearing into there as he's in amongst there looking for that nectar. And these will get bigger over the course of the summer months. So these flowers will start big at the bottom and eventually make their way to the top. Loads of colour, especially if you're wanting to create kind of contrast as we are in front of a wall. And in terms of pollinators, I think this is one of the best. And again, it pretty much looks after itself. You'll see these growing along the verges and amongst long grasses and around the edges of agricultural fields. But one thing you will notice, in fact, one thing you will hear is the amount of activity going on and amongst these, buzzing with activity as the bees flock to these. So let's do our bit and get some more pollinators into our garden by planting this. Let's give it a good soak. You can see we've already started soaking up a lot of that moisture. Incredible. Nature really is incredible. How could you not love that? Just look at it. A lot of people moan about the foliage getting a little bit flaky because it puts, again, all its energy into the flower, but no, that's a kind of concession I'm quite happy to make. Just a quick one whilst we're in this bed as well, some other shade-loving plants that we're planting in here, and they are really good in areas of shade and also in areas of clay as well. So we've got our Hydrangea petiolaris, our climbing hydrangea. It grows quite slowly, that's the only thing that goes against Hydrangea petiolaris, but there's so many positives. The fact that you can plant this in clay soil, you can plant this in poor soil, you can plant this in shade, and when it gets going and it gets happy, as long as it's trained up against the wall and it's secure, it's not going to get battered or beaten by the winds. Not only are you going to get this lovely foliage, but you're also going to get loads and loads of delicate white flowers as well. So particularly useful if you're trying to screen something in a north-facing garden. And again, the good thing about this as well is that foliage is evergreeners. So it's a real go-to if you're trying to create a bit of structure or screening where you don't get sunlight. Love it. I absolutely love this plant. So a couple of other hydrangeas to look at. This is Hydrangea Annabelle. Again, this is a real go-to for areas of clay soil, semi-shade. It will do well in a bit of sunlight as well, but you probably have to water it much more often because it can get a bit wilty if it's in direct heat. I wouldn't advocate that you plant it in direct sunlight, but you can give it a try if you're willing to keep it well watered. It likes moist soil, and these are going to become big kind of pom-poms of white. So if you're looking for a plant that's going to do well in a north-facing garden, or if you've got damp soil, clay soil, Hydrangea Annabelle all day long. It's a real staple. But there's one last thing I just want to show you before we go. Actually, there's two things I want to show you. Now, just to pick up on those dark timbers that we've got in the garden, we've got this black-stemmed hydrangea. Again, this is going to put out lots of white flowers. So this guy here will grow to about 80 centimetres to a metre, slightly slower growing than things like your Hydrangea Annabelle, but it's going to give us interest at height, it's going to give us colour in terms of that stem. It's also going to give us flower. But there's one final treat, Paul. This one's just for you, and I'm going to say it right this time. Verbena bonariensis. We're just going to use this. Yay, nailed it. First take. We're going to use this again to create a crowd of colour across this very narrow bed. Nice sunny spot, and this has only just started getting going because it will grow high up, upwards of 5, 6, 7 feet if you let it go that high. So we'll have these lovely prongs of purple punctuating this back border. giving height, structure, form, and the fact that we've got this narrow bed. This is a great plant. It's a plant at a kind of linear stretch. You might fill these voids here with some other bits and pieces. I've already spoken to our clients about maybe flooding this with lavender for this year, so we get a real kind of plethora of pollinators across this back bed for the late bumblebees and butterflies. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed our tour of the plants and pollinators going in on this project. We're almost done here, a little bit of cleaning up to do, but we'll be on to our next gardening project very soon. And you can keep tabs on what we get up to by just pressing the subscribe button down below. And if you've got any gardening questions yourself, or perhaps you've got a horticultural horror show going on at home, you can always ping me a message down in the comments section. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget to hang around to the end of the video and check out the link. And we'll leave you with a few final shots of what the current project looks like.